been learning a lot more about Father Solanus Casey. As many people know, I have a particularly strong devotion to.
Yeah.
We've actually got a postcard that he sent my dad's mom.
No way.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
My mom's mom used to live across the street from the monastery
Wow.
when he was there. So she used to go across the street and say hello to him.
No way.
One of the things I really admire about him is his humble nature. If someone was in need, he was willing to be there for him, to offer counsel, wisdom, and prayer.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I try and do with my own work. I don't get me wrong, I love the news stories that get written. I love going on to different shows to do interviews. But unless I'm doing it in the service of Christ, then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Welcome to the Pious Reflections Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Roberts, and I am joined by John Kraemer today of the Lego Project. I'm excited to talk to him about the work that he's doing and also talk about how he was influential in my conversion to the Catholic faith. Stick around for the Pious Reflections Podcast. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, welcome. I am joined with John. I have him on the line, and he is set up, ready to go. I'm going to bring him in here. John, welcome to the Pious Reflections Podcast, formerly known as Solomon's Corner, which I feel like everybody's doing that now. You know, it's like Elon Musk bought Twitter. So now I just feel like I'm kind of part of that cool crowd that can say formerly known as. But anyway, I digress. So how are you doing, man?
I'm not doing too bad.
Awesome. So have you, so tell people about what you do. Like, what's that big, huge thing that's behind you there that looks awesome? And I totally would want to check out in person. And my kid would, by the way, go nuts for.
Oh, man. Well, what you have behind me is the Season 25 Lego Church project, which took me about a month and a half to build. Has 30,000 Lego pieces and over 300 minifigures inside.
Whoa.
It's kind of hard to tell from here, but this is not a small Lego creation.
Yeah, I have some screenshots here that I was going to share. While I'm sharing these screenshots real fast, who are you, and how did the Lego project start?
Well, I'm John J.M. Kraemer, based in Saginaw Township, Michigan, which is about 2 hours north of Detroit. And what I do is every year, starting around February, I take about a month and a half to 2 months to build a giant church of my own creation out of Lego. And the core of what I do is disability. I've got malformed cerebral palsy, so I'm showing no matter what challenge or disability you face, God can still use your talents, often in amazing and creative ways. Given the fact that I've been doing this for 25 years, it is a blessing to be able to share my talents that God has given me with those around me, either online or in person, like some of the pictures have shown.
Yeah. So tell me some of the stories of people that you've inspired with your work, because I know I'm inspired by it. Like, podcasting has been a up and down road, and we're gonna get into it a little bit later, but it's like your ministry, brought somebody into the church, at least as a part of that whole story. I mean, everybody asks me, when a Protestant comes in, like, so how'd you come into the church? It's like, well, it's not exactly like a Protestant like just wakes up one day and feels like being Catholic. There's a lot of divine moments along the way. But tell me and the audience a little bit about some of the stories from the years of your work. Like, what are some of the biggest inspirational moments you've had?
There's quite a few. There was the time when I was over in a parish in St. Louis, Michigan, which is rural county, part of the county. And a grandmother brought her 5-year-old grandson. And he's got cerebral palsy. So do I.
Yeah.
Form of it. And she was really inspired. She saw at that point that no matter what God had in store for his life, there was hope there, that he could do something. May not be quite what everyone expected, but he will survive. He will do well. There's a time where I was doing a display at All Saints Parish in Bay City. I was part of their vacation Bible school at the time,
Is this Bay City,
and
Michigan?
yeah,
Okay.
and the lady brought her neighbor kid who
Mm,
has severe disabilities. He's looking at the project. His eyes are wide open, and he couldn't express himself verbally,
mm,
but you could see in his heart that
yeah.
he was loving everything that he was looking. He was trying to look at everything. And I've had people come up to me and say that the Holy Spirit's working through me. That was a common theme of this recent display I did in Midland. And there's always a level of some people just come in and they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
They take a look at my work and they see something good inside it. Maybe they see some of themselves as well. You got the kids that are swarming around it. They're taking a look and seeing everything that's going on, and they learn from that. And I think that's one of the things that keeps me going is I'm inspiring people even in some small way.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of what it is I do with Lego Church Project. Because with my own walk with disability, I'm learning about the faith, learning how to navigate the faith while trying to navigate chronic challenges and conditions that throw me off balance,
Yeah.
both literal and figuratively.
Yeah. I was talking with or last night on the episode we talked about St. Maximilian Kolbe and this Christian movement of masculinity that's going around, and we used Maximilian Kolbe as an example of what true masculinity looks like. Um, because a lot of people don't know. Like, I'm amazed, coming into the church, I'm kind of surprised at how many Catholics know the saints by name, but they don't know the details of some of the famous saints' stories, like how hard their life was, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like coming in, like as we're standing like outside of the parish, like I've got my saint books. Usually I'm reading about some saint almost every time I go to church, and somebody's like, so what are you learning about that one? And then I'll be like, oh well, you probably know. And then they're like, no, I don't. Tell me. And so this happened with Saint Maximilian Kolbe, but most people don't know that he was mocked and kind of made fun of for his tuberculosis. He was weak and he was sick, and he like the fact that he didn't die before he got to Auschwitz was kind of a miracle in and of itself. And but I brought him up because of the fact that like he has these calls to suffer for Christ, but it's not like they're calls that are not founded in his own experience. And so when you say, that you're struggling with disability and doing great things, I think that your testimony has more weight to it because of the fact that other people can say, oh well, of course, you don't have a disability. Of course, you could build a great Lego church. It's funny how people have that perception. It's like, well, if you're normal, you should do great things, and you better impress me. And if you have a disability, we have incredibly low expectations for you. Nobody can do any great things. It's kind of that implicit view.
Well, it's kind of funny that you talk about that because number one, I'm not a trained architect.
Right.
I went the highest level of education I got was high school, and even then, that was a challenge to get to
Man.
because of the rules of the state of Michigan at the time regarding their testing. Math was like my worst subject, and the irony is that this project requires a fair amount of math, particularly like with trying to keep things evened up with the
Yeah.
various rows, widths, dimensions, volume, because I've got to guesstimate to see if I've got enough parts to do what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about saints that had challenges. Look at Father Celeste Casey.
Yes, I was hoping you were
He,
going to bring him up.
he had learning disabilities. He had a hard time going through the required courses. He was ordained as a simplex priest, which means there were things that he could do, but things that he couldn't do. He also had eczema, severe, along with a few other challenges, and yet he was known for his deep love of God, his deep love of the church, and his wisdom that came through because of those things. Uh, and I think with my own work, I'm trying to bring about light to some of those things. The various that despite you may have a challenge or a chronic condition, uh, God is still there for you. And if you allow Him to open your heart, you may do some amazing things. It may not be building churches, but it may be something else. There may be a talent that you have that you can share with others, and that's the entire point. It's not so much the church itself, what I build,
Yeah.
but rather it's exploring your own talents. How can you use your talents for the faith? How can you share the faith using your talents? When I'm out and about in the stores, I'm notoriously known for handing out business cards, talking about the project, showing photos on my phone.
Yeah.
Uh, and I've run into people that have seen my work in the past and are happy to know that I'm still doing it.
Yes.
Uh, and even some of the places that I've been to before, people are asking me if I'm coming back next year because they want to see what I'm going to be doing next.
That's
That's
awesome.
what happened. That's what happened with this parish in Midland, Michigan that I was at. I had a couple of parishioners ask me if I was coming back. Even at my home parish, Christ the Good Shepherd St. Helens, the one that was mentioned in the Catholic News Agency article, gearing up to come back for my 21st year of displaying with them. Uh, God does some amazing things. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, and when we'll come back to this Catholic News Agency article in a second. I was going to tell you another story about, you said that you didn't have, as far as math goes, you don't have that kind of skill set. It reminds me of a funny story. My wife and I, when we were engaged, her neighbor had to give me a ride back to the airport, and it turned out her neighbor was like the lead architect on the 7 Mile bridge down in the Florida Keys. Like, it's this like famous architectural phenomenon, like this huge massive bridge, that's down in Florida. And we were driving on our way to the airport, and he was going to drop me off so I could fly back to Michigan, and because that's where I'm from too. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know I was from Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I'm not there anymore. I'm in Ohio now. So in fact, actually, last we talked, I was in South Carolina. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so lots to talk about there. I'm gonna try and keep this to like an hour, but we'll see what happens there. If it goes to 90 minutes, we'll have a good time. But maybe everybody trickles off after 30. But what I was gonna say is that as we were driving, he said that when he started building this bridge, like some people from MIT wanted to come to check out the bridge. These like real top notch professor engineer guys. And one of the things that happened was that while they were talking about this bridge, he said that they came in and they looked at what he was doing and they said, "You can't do that. Like that's not mathematically correct." And he said that he turned and looked at these MIT engineers and he said, "And how many bridges have you built?" So, I mean, like we kind of have this, and it's also interesting too, because I think your ministry definitely can help people with what's in the field of like a real buzzword in careers right now is imposter syndrome, right? The sense that, well, I don't have the certifications, I don't have a Harvard degree, I don't have this, so I'm just an idiot. I'm an application developer and I'm self-taught, and I went through that. I had the same kind of thoughts, like, well, I just have a philosophy master's, like, I'm smart according to people, but I'm not math smart. In fact, actually, one time when I was at work, somebody said to me, because I had programmed something, this was at a previous employer, and the logic got off and it was mathematical, and I had made a mathematical error in the code, and somebody said, well, you're a computer guy, you're supposed to know math. And I said, correction, I'm supposed to know logic, not math. so you are supposed to know math, accounting. You tell me the formula, I write the formula. I had what is the equivalent of a grammatical typo. Okay. So, and yeah. So anyway, but that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about this. I'm going to pull up this screen share here. because I saw this. I was pulling photos from your stuff this morning. I saw this Catholic news agency. My audience is still very Protestant, um, at least as far as I can tell. I do get more traction with Catholics, so some of them will know who this is. But for those who don't know, like, how did the story come about? Who is the Catholic news agency, and who's this lady in the picture that you mentioned earlier?
Well, the lady in the picture is the mother of the photographer. The picture was taken at a parish in Standish, Michigan, and I was doing a display with Father Ron Wagner, who is pastor over there, and he used to be pastor of Christ Good Shepherd, my home parish.
Okay.
In fact, he took over for the previous pastor, the late Father Emmett Marceau, who was the one that was instrumental in allowing me to do my Christmas display. So, and I ran into him like earlier in October. He was visiting, and or no, well, within that time frame,
Yeah.
and he invited me to come up for a visit. So, and they had for the church to for their social media stuff. They took some photos. So when I did the follow up interview from Catholic News Agency from a couple of years ago, we used those photos because they were good quality. And most of the other photos are taken just on my phone, and
Yeah.
they're decent enough. Uh, but I thought they were really good because I thought they highlighted a bit about what I do. And in the one screenshot, those are one of the photos is from the Assumption Parish display that I just recently did.
Oh,
I
really?
was there. Yeah, I was there for 2 days. I was there
Wow.
for in part for part of their holiday bazaar and part for the parish display, which was a lot of fun. I always love coming out there.
Yeah.
John is a gracious host when it comes to inviting me out, and that was my third year there.
Who's is
Uh,
this Father? What's the last name of John?
Gravlin, he is the parish administrator.
Okay, gotcha. I was there's another Father John on Twitter, and I wasn't sure. And he's in Michigan too, and he has a podcast. Did you go on his podcast too? Do you know who I'm talking about? Father John Krupp? Is that his name?
Oh, Father Joe Krupp.
Joe Krupp. Yeah. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I yes, I
Catholic
actually
Twitter is
was
a
kind of
controversial place, so if I'm dropping somebody's name that I'm not supposed to associate with you with, I'm sorry.
okay. Father Krupp currently is part of Holy Family in Grand Blanc. I think he's got another parish that he serves,
Okay.
but he has connections to a small charismatic community in Flushing, Michigan, which my parents are active members of.
Oh, no way.
And and I actually went to his ordination.
Okay.
I don't know if he remembers that,
Yeah.
but I have not been on his program. I have not had a chance to display at his parish. I would love to. So if by some chance he happens to be seeing this or one of his parishioners, I'm always looking for parishes for next season.
Well, I'm going to definitely clip that and I'm going to tag him for you. And we'll try and make sure that this little Ohioan gets you some more shows for the next project. So what's the plan? What's the plan as far as how many more showings do you hope to have this season? Are you kind of like rounded out? Because I know around Christmas, if I remember correctly, that's usually when you kind of start to wind things down. You're kind of starting to plan the dismantling process and then go into the dismantling of the church. Well, not the church, but your Lego church.
Well, what's going on right now is I am heading into the end of the season.
Okay.
This is where I do my final display, which will be at Christ the Good Shepherd Parish, probably between first weekend or second weekend of Advent. I'm still coordinating to get the transportation worked out. That will remain there until at least first or second weekend of January, the end of the Christmas season. Once the project comes home, I will do the teardown and then start with season 26 build,
Okay.
which I'm hoping the target time is tentatively around first weekend of February is what I'm looking at right now.
All right.
What kind of influences that is depending on what's going on around me. If we get a late January snowstorm, I'm probably gonna be sitting praying at the bricks.
Now that is one
Uh,
cool thing too. Real quick, you mentioned praying at the bricks. Talk about the spiritual aspects when you get a chance. If you want to finish that thought, that's really cool. But I want to make sure people also know that it's not just building a Lego church. Like you're actually when you say praying at the bricks, you actually mean something by that.
Yeah, my work is prayer. When I am building the project, I am praying with my hands. I am taking everything that is going on around me, the good, the bad, the ugly, whether it is in our churches, our home life, whatever's going on around me, all my worries, my fears, my anxieties, I place before the Lord. I place it within each brick that I lay down. I'm literally praying with my hands. I'm praying at the bricks. That's why I even call my Substack newsletter that. So with each piece I'm laying down, the church, as people have noted numerous times over the years, that it's full of people. That's on purpose. That is a prayer, not a reflection of the past, but a prayer for our present and our future. That more people would come to the Mass to take part in the life of the church, to help build our parish communities so we are thriving, helping those who are in need, making sure that everyone has a chance to have a fair life. These are the things that I take with me as I'm building. With each brick, with each story that comes out, I never know where the story is going to go when I'm building until sit down and start with the layout. So there is definitely a deep spiritual component to my work. It is a time of personal reflection. What's going on around me? What can I do to solve the problems at hand? And with this build, there's always stories about how things go right, how things don't go according to plan, and which is the nature of life. Look at all the stuff going on around us, and you realize we need prayer more than ever. And so this is just kind of a manifestation of that. Some people have compared it to those who work on icons. Uh, I'm not sure I'd be qualified like that, but still, what I'm doing is kind of unique,
Yeah.
and I enjoy the prayer aspect of it. I enjoy being getting down with the bricks, working on things as I go. We talk about plans for season 26. I've got a couple ideas on stuff I want to do,
Yeah.
but I won't really know until I sit down with the layout and the Lord gives me the wisdom needed to come up with something creative.
Yeah. So go into that real quick. When you say the layout, so what's your planning process for these projects?
What I do is I've got the project sits on a plywood base with all the base plates connected. From there, I'll make out a basic grid system that is basically the main frame. From there, I will work on the details like where's the altar going to sit, where the main entrance is going to be, how is that even going to look. I kind of use a lot of the same kind of basic designs just because it's easy, but also too it's structurally sound. You have to figure this thing is about 4 foot by 2 feet by 2 feet, and it has to move. It has to be able
Yeah.
to be transported. So it has to be. There's a balancing act between what is artistic, but what can also handle the stress of being moved.
Right. Yeah. Well, and didn't you say that these things can be up around like 80 pounds?
Give
Can't they
or
get
take,
pretty heavy?
they can.
Man.
I mean, the roof cross alone that's on top is a separate piece and it weighs a couple pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I have that in the actual cover shot here of you um, right here holding that thing. How heavy is that?
That's a couple pounds.
Like
I'd say
five?
at least yeah, I'd say close to 5.
Wow. That's that's pretty
And it's
nuts,
solid and it's solid built.
man.
It can survive. It can survive a fall off a table.
That's crazy. Now, do you use that cross in every design?
Yeah, the last several seasons, it has been the feature of the project. The main thing that will change is the pedestal that it is on.
Okay, gotcha,
Uh, I, because originally when I first had it set in, it was flat with the roof, but
okay,
I wanted to raise it up to highlight a little bit.
gotcha.
So from there, I'll design whatever translucent pieces are going to go in. Just once again, I like how the light shines through that stuff, so it works.
Yeah. So when it comes to the actual design, are you drawing this out on paper, or are you like how are you actually doing? the design? Like, is it all in your head? Like, walk us through that. It's all up there.
It's all in the head.
Wow.
Seriously, I don't pre-plan anything. I will have a couple ideas in mind as to structurally what I want to do, but in terms of how it actually turns out, I won't know until I'm at the bricks.
Wow.
I really won't know, and it's kind of fun when you have people that are following along and
Yeah.
seeing the design process. Because I'll start posting photos of just the bare layout and everything just looks empty, void,
Yeah.
and then they'll start seeing, oh wow, he's coming up the walls, he's got the floor in place, and some of those sections can take countless hours.
Right.
Especially with the tile work in the center aisle, the entryway they use. Uh, Even the solid floors take a couple hours to assemble, which
Wow.
can be a challenge in itself, and it can be hard on the fingertips.
What would you say is the hardest part of the project then? Like, is it the floor? Is it the tower? The wiring up of the lights? Like, how does that all come together? What's the hardest thing? And then I do want to know, how hard is it to wire up the lights in your projects?
Well, I'll actually get to that because actually that's one of the challenges. The initial there are a couple of different hard spots that come through when I'm building. The first one is coming up with a layout that will work for what I want to do. Once the layout process is set, mostly from there, the first once you reach the halfway point, which is this blue line that is in the middle of the project, that is where the first major challenge comes from.
Point to it again, because I didn't have you up there. Point where is it at the blue line? That's where the
The
okay, gotcha.
That is the halfway point. What it is number one, I've got to tie everything together from the lower half. I've got to make the cleats, the spacing for the lights, and then I got to set the balcony panels in. Now, rigging the lights on the lower half is a bit of a challenge because I'm working with a U shape. So I've got to figure out where all the excess lights are going to go through. Hiding in the bell tower is a wonderful thing. But then I've got these three major plates that I use for the back portion of the balcony, which do not always want to come together as smoothly as I would like. Requires a little bit of creative persuasion
Okay.
to set in properly, usually involving some kind of knife or, yeah, well, a knife or a key or something to make sure the cleats kind of link in properly.
Okay.
It's
Gotcha.
a little bit it's a little bit nerve wracking, but
Yeah.
once things are placed in, then you have the next challenge. The rest of the build will go fairly smoothly, and actually the bell towers are actually not part of that because the bell towers last year were pre-assembled,
Okay.
uh, which is what I'm probably going to be doing for next year because it just makes things easier. But then you get into the other frustration, which is first the roof grid,
Okay.
which ties everything together, which then you make room for the lights, which add in the second group of lights, because then the challenge is that you got to rig them all the way through the upper roof, and hopefully your connection points work out so everything goes to where you want it to.
Yeah. And this is what
Um,
you're talking about right here is the grid on the top of your roof, right? Can you see that?
yeah, that is where the tiles will set in, and because you have to figure, I've got one, two, three, about five different spaces that I have to fill.
Okay, gotcha. So this isn't done. Like you'll fill in those gaps.
Well, what happens when I'm doing a display, I'll take those pieces off so people can see off the top of it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So okay, gotcha. So you arrive set up that way. That is awesome.
And then the challenge is the setting the roof cross,
The roof
because first I
cross.
have to yeah first I have yeah that massive cross right there.
Yeah,
Then I have to build the pedestal for it.
which is the red part.
Doing yeah doing the internal fillers to make sure everything is fairly solid
Yeah.
underneath. Because what you don't see underneath that cross is basically on all the arms and even in the center, there's additional bracing underneath to keep everything supported.
Gotcha.
So,
Wow.
so But because of the way the lights are rigged up, the lights will shine upwards as well, so you'll still see through the translucent pieces.
Well, that's cool. Man alive. This is awesome. So real quick, where can people what is the best place these days for people to find out about your projects?
The Lego Church Project on Facebook and Praying at the Bricks on Substack.
Okay. So would you say that Facebook and Substack are your two primary social platforms that where you're active the most?
Yeah, I'm also active on Twitter,
Yeah. I see you on
and I
there all the
also
time.
yeah, and I also dabble on Blue Sky
Okay.
occasionally.
Gotcha. Is
I'll
that the
probably
left
put
wing one? Is
yeah,
that where all the Dems are going now?
I actually had Blue Sky set up back during one of the other Twitter crises.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I just so I have a backup because you never know what's
Yeah.
going on these days.
Right.
So, and I post there occasionally. I can post more Substack content
Yep.
over there because for some reason Twitter and Facebook do not like outside links.
No, they don't. Like that
They
is yeah. I
for whatever reason that's one of my main gripes.
yep.
And if Substack was to ever offer long-term photo hosting, where because I like post like several thousand photos,
Yeah.
uh,
Have you hit the max?
then
Is that why you're saying that? Like, do you have to clear out some of your photos on Substack every
no,
now and then?
it's no, well, no, Substack doesn't allow for long photo albums.
Okay, gotcha. Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah,
I think you can only have like about
three
five
or
or
four.
six photos,
Okay.
yeah, in an album.
Yep.
So it's not conductive to what I would like.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
If they had unlimited photo hosting, I would probably move a lot of my content to Substack.
There you go, Substack.
Uh,
Come on, get on it. So.
that would be the and actually I actually like Substack as a writer's platform.
Yeah.
I use their text editor
Yep.
for all my blog posts now, both for my main blog, Building Faith, and but also for Catholicism Rocks for my Tuesday post.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
And
that.
I'll
You
do
have a Tuesday post on Catholicism?
my Catholicism Rocks
Really?
website.
What's that?
That is just another blogging platform that I was invited to join, and so I post, so I contribute my Tuesday post. It is often content that has either started on praying at the bricks, building faith, or something come up off the top of my head that eventually gets migrated to the other platforms.
Okay, cool. So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily specific to the project. It might be specific to Catholicism in general, or because some of your posts, like you have this one here that you made. Uh, the hardest thing one can do is pick up our cross and follow Christ, which I thought was very well done shot. By the way, I like how you work in the theological side of your faith on these posts. What would you
Well,
say? Like, so is that what Catholic Rocks is? Like, is it more stuff that kind of just gets into Catholicism in general, or are you also bringing in the project as well, or a little bit of both?
a little bit of both. I mean, I'm often writing about different topics related to faith, disability. Sometimes it ties directly into the project. Sometimes it's just my own reflections. And everything that I do, like with the writing, is all interconnected in some small way. The project has allowed me to branch out so people see some of my ratings. And the only reason why I started even collecting my ratings or even sharing them in public is because I was posting stuff on Facebook on my personal feed. Friends and family loved it,
Yeah,
and they kept telling me, "Oh, you should write a book. Wow, you've got great wisdom." Okay, I'll just share it with everyone and see what happens.
yeah, yeah. That is the way that it seems to go these days, and I think also real quick before we get into the Catholic stuff because we're hitting around like 30 minutes right now, and that's usually like the like around like people stick around for like the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then right around 30. I wanted to make sure we got your project in before I brought up the Catholic stuff, but you actually uh do not know this, but my patron saint is Joseph. And the reason why is, well, not the reason why, but St. Joseph was like a real stumbling block to me coming into the church. And I had basically been reading the catechism on the Catholic faith, and we had an episode where I went into my testimony and stuff, so I'm not going to like rehash all that, but I can tell you at some point or send you the link or whatever. But what ended up happening was, as I was investigating, so a lot, just so you're aware, a lot has happened at this point in the story of conversion that led up to me kind of being okay with Mary, like understanding, what the church was saying when it came to the intercession of the saints, and the specifically the Blessed Mother. And I'm like, okay, well, Mother of faith, Mother of love, Mother of mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. Okay, well, that sounds really tough until you realize, like, well, all those things could be ascribed to Christ. And so you're like, well, Mother of love. Okay, well, Jesus is love. Okay, I get it. I see where you're going there. And then I read on the UCCB bishop's site, I read that this prayer to Saint Joseph from like Pope Leo the 13th or some pope wrote it. And it's like, Saint Joseph, terror of demons, protect us through the night, and all this kind of stuff. And then my little Protestant brain was like, whoa, slow your roll there, man. Like, we don't even know what this guy said, And so I was really taken aback by that. And we were in the process of selling our house in South Carolina as I'm going through this. And we're also going through RCIA at this point. And I read that prayer and I was like, bro, I got nothing on that. I don't know how I'm going to explain that to Protestant friends and family. And if we convert. And so as I was sitting there, I was kind of like struggling and wrestling. And you pinged me on Twitter and said, hey, how's everything going? And I said, well, the move, we're trying to move and sell our house and stuff, but everything's good. But you didn't know that like I was like in this like wrestling match with Saint Joseph, And you just dropped in the Twitter private messages. You said, "May Saint Joseph guide you." And I was like, "What the? How does he know? And so anyway, I was like, that is creepy. And so I was like, well, whatever. These Catholics are weird. I don't know what's going on there. Protestants say this stuff is demonic. Maybe that's what it is. I'm like freaking out. But anyway, I walked out of my office because I work from home, and I walked out of my office and it was dinner time, and I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I just don't know if I can do this Catholic thing. Like the saints are, that's a tough one to get over. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, well, and just so you know, my wife was more apprehensive about becoming Catholic than I was at this point. And so I told her and I said, well, I just don't know how to get around this Saint Joseph prayer. Like it's a real tough prayer from a Protestant perspective to justify. And it really calls into question, my whole understanding at that point of what it means to, have the saints intercede and stuff. I'll probably do a post on this actually, because I think a lot of Protestants would probably benefit from it, and probably even some Catholics maybe. But my wife, I said, I just don't know if I can become a Catholic. She said, it's just kind of funny. And my wife will tell you, she's not like an intellectual kind of, like, she's not an academic-y person. I love to like read the Summa and then write on it, and all this stuff, and, pretend I'm a monk. And, I'm like LARPing, Dominican friar over here, live action role play for those people who don't know. But anyway, so she says, well, you do realize that Saint Joseph is actually, his feast day is on your birthday. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, isn't that crazy? And I was like, yeah, that is a little weird. And so anyway, but I still like right up until our confirmation, I was like, I'm not picking Saint Joseph. Like I did not want to pick Saint Joseph. And it was actually Saint Maximilian Kolbe who actually convinced me that Saint Joseph was the one that I should pick, because I was between Saint Joseph and Saint Maximilian Kolbe. And the reason why was because Saint Joseph was 100% like moving in our life. So my kids have this, I'll tell you this one story real quick. So my kids have this story that they told to my family when they came to visit for Christmas that year, and it was we were sitting around a fire, and I had a rough day at work, and I was trying to get this fire started, and I could not get it started for the life of me, and it was getting late, and we were trying to get in the habit of praying the rosary as a family, and so my wife was like, Daniel, it's super late, we just gotta go, like we just gotta start. And I was like, all right, fine. So I left these coals. I mean, it's dark in there, like, and we're sitting there and we're praying the rosary, and we get all the way around, and basically we pass the rosary around to each kid, and each kid would pray a decade, and then it end with me, and we get done, and I say, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen, and the fire goes woof, like.
Oh, wow.
And my wife said, you know what's crazy, I was asking Saint Joseph to give you a fire during the rosary, and I was like, what?
Oh, man.
So then, right before I get to the confirmation, the priests are like, "Hey, who do you want to be your confirmation saint?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Can I pick two? Because I really like Saint Maximilian Kolbe. You know, he's like patron saint of mass media. He's got this awesome story of like going against both Nazis and communism and Marxism. I'm like, this is awesome, and so I said a prayer to Saint Maximilian Kolbe. I said, "Listen, Saint Max, you better do something, or else I'm picking Saint Joseph, because Saint Joseph's doing stuff and you're not doing stuff." And so I told the priest, I was like, "I need 24 hours," and nothing happened. And I said, "All right, fine, I'm picking Saint Joseph." So then I got back home after confirmation, and I even brought Saint Maximilian Kolbe's book with me to the actual confirmation, because I was like, this is my first communion. I'm going to be meditating on the life of Saint Maximilian Kolbe, because he actually said stuff, you know, like,
Yeah.
so we get done with confirmation. I go home and I'm like wrapping up this blog on the life of Saint Maximilian Kolbe and this book, by the way, Forget Not Love by Andre Frischard. Have you ever heard of that book?
I'm not.
Dude, you got to pick that book up. It's legit. Anyway, also a guy who was a Jewish guy who lived in Poland or around the same time, around the same area as Maximilian Kolbe. He didn't end up in the camps, but he did end up in like the Jewish ghettos and stuff. And so it's the life of Saint Maximilian Kolbe written from the perspective of like a Jewish guy who was persecuted. So it's pretty cool. And it's really well done. Props to the translator, by the way. I mean, like, translators don't get enough credit. It's like if you're reading a book and you're like, I think this guy speaks my language, and then you see a translation guy on there, it's like you need to give props to that guy. But anyway, so I'm reading this story, and what ends up happening is I'm already confirmed. You know, my patron's confirmation. I'm still learning the lingo, but confirmation saint is Saint Joseph, and I read about the testimony of the witnesses in the camp. And in the back of that book, he's got 3 witnesses who are cited at the canonization of Maximilian Kolbe. And they talked about the story. One of them recounted it as St. Maximilian Kolbe telling the guard, this man is a father, and I am just a priest. And he has kids. And I was like, well, I guess I picked the right one for my patron saint then, because I'm not a priest, I'm a dad. And if St. Maximilian Kolbe was willing to give up his life for the vocation of a father, then that really communicated to me the importance of my vocation, and that I had chosen St. Joseph as the correct patron saint. And it was just, one of those things, right? Because a lot of time, and I feel this, especially when you see like suicide rates of men and stuff, you just, you overlook the importance of your vocation. And as a father, yeah, it was definitely like one of those things where I was like, well, I guess I picked the right one. So you had a big role in that, John. You're little subtle, just 3 words. It's like on Twitter when people are like, tell a sad story in 3 words or less. It's like convert a Protestant in 3 words or less. And John drops, may Saint Joseph guide you. I guess it's more than 3, but we're both bad at math, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of fascinating when I hear stuff like this, because you don't, as someone with the kind of nature that I have, you don't always know the kind of impact that you're having. whether it is with the project or something that I'm posting. I'm trying to be as uplifting as I can, even in the face of my own challenges. I do tend to post a lot of prayer requests on social media because I believe in the power of prayer, obviously.
Right.
And if usually if I'm invoking the name of someone specific, like Saint Joseph, Father Solanus, or a couple others, there's usually a reason or a motivation behind it. Oftentimes, a motivation that even I can't see. Uh, and I think that kind of stuff is important. I think that the saints can teach us much, and I think that we're proof of that.
Yeah.
I know that I mean, for me in particular, in the last several years, I've been learning a lot more about Father Solanus Casey. As many people know, I have a particularly strong devotion to.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from the fact that I've got grandparents on both sides of the family that had direct interaction with him
Wow.
when he was in Detroit. We've actually got a postcard that he sent my dad's mom.
No way.
Yeah,
That is crazy.
my mom's mom used to live across the street from the monastery when he
Wow.
was there, so she used to go up. She used to go across the street and say hello to him.
No way. Where is he at
Yeah,
in his Where's he at in the canonization process, real quick?
yeah, he is still blessed,
Okay, gotcha. So
which
means he's got one miracle, right?
yeah,
Okay.
we're just waiting on the second one.
All right.
And one of the things I really admire about him is his humble nature
Yeah.
and his dedication and his desire to help anyone that came through those doors. It didn't matter if they were Catholic, it didn't matter if they were Protestant. If someone was in need, he was willing to be there for him to offer counsel, wisdom, and prayer.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I try and do with my own work. Uh, I don't get me wrong. I love the news stories that get written. I love going on to different shows to do
Yeah.
interviews. But unless I'm doing it in the service of Christ, then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. That's right.
And that
Well,
is
and
some that
keep going. What were you gonna say?
and that is just something that I've always tried to keep in mind, keep in focus. I try and remain as humble as I can.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of good content people out there that get into this stuff, but they let the fame go to their heads.
Yeah. Audience
At,
capture.
yeah, at that point, at that point, man, it's like you see so many good people just go off the rails.
Yeah.
They're trying at that point, they're trying to make more money.
Yep.
That's not what I'm about.
Right.
My sole focus is to share the faith using the challenge that God has given me. If it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Let alone for 25 years.
Right. Well, and you that was one of the my wife and I both had these kind of barriers that fell for us in the Catholic faith. For her, it was the Eucharist. Like I didn't really have as like the Eucharist was more of an intellectual question for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and God still brought down my intellectual objections to it. We were Anglican though, so that's kind of like quasi. That's like depending on which one you're in, they might be Anglo Catholic. You know what I mean? They might be like, oh yeah, full blown transubstantiation, 100%. Um, but the thing that is interesting to me about what you said, if it wasn't for God, like I wouldn't have these abilities, and you wouldn't therefore be ministering to people the way that you are.
Yeah.
And one of the things that fell for me with the saints, is, and actually I got this from my daughter, because she was like, well, why don't Protestants want to read about the saints? I was trying to prep them because we're the only Catholics in our family, and so like they're still gonna play with Protestant kids. It's not like we're gonna, all right, well, see you later. We're not on the same team anymore. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But the thing I was gonna say is that I was talking to my daughter about this, and I said, there are Protestants out there that don't believe in the intercession of the saints or don't really investigate their lives. And she said, well, how are they going to be like Christ if they don't do that? Like just like a little 9-year old uh, brain, right? She's
Oh,
because at that point we had been reading about a saint every day. And so like they loved the saint stories. Like that was like their favorite part of devotions, right? And the fact that these people really lived is also a thing. It's not just an inspirational Christian fiction like Narnia. It's like no, like
yeah.
these people's lives read like Narnia. In fact, I had a joke with somebody. I said my latest conspiracy theory about the Catholic Church is that they actually have genetic testing that can be done on children at a young age, and they can end up determining who's going to be the greatest writers, like from a very early age, and they just start recruiting them early on, and then they have them write these great fictional stories, about these lives of the saints, so that people will convert, or it's true, one of the
Oh,
two,
wow.
right? And so anyway, but I think that people misunderstand sometimes what Catholics are talking about, and I know from personal experience, right? Well, why would I ask for the intercession of Saint Joseph or protection from Saint Joseph or any of these things when I could just go to God, right? Well, it's the same kind of question of around like, well, if I can have an experience with God going to my favorite worship service, right? Or my favorite church, then why should I care about other ministries? Why should I care about the gifts that John Kraemer has or the gifts that Daniel Roberts has that God clearly uses to impact everybody? And what you realize is that, yeah, God doesn't have to use the saints. He chooses to use the saints in the same way
Yeah.
that he doesn't have to use you. And so your job doesn't stop when you get to heaven if you're a saint. In fact, I joked with my wife. I said, I think the reason why there's not as many parents who are saints is not because, of clericalism or whatever. It's because our job is actually harder than a priest. And so when we get to heaven, we get to take a vacation. So I mean that tongue in cheek, just to be clear. You got to be careful. Those trad Catholics, man, they'll be ready to jump on you like a pack of
Oh,
wolves. So, which again, I think that that's not derogatory.
I'm
I
sure.
so
I'm sure that I've run into the ire of a few myself just because of the nature of what I do,
yeah,
the nature of the things I talk about.
right,
Disability, even talking about it sometimes can be uncomfortable because people
mm-hmm.
don't fully understand it.
Right,
And that's part of the thing that I'm trying to do is to try and remove a little bit of that stigma,
yeah,
uh, to try and be more inclusive in our parishes and to take those with disabilities into more consideration. And rather than just making assumption as to what someone's abilities or limits are, ask them.
right, yeah,
Uh, I mean, I sing in the choir,
yeah,
believe it or not, and I have a little bit of problems with learning material sometimes, but I push through.
yeah,
There are other tasks. You wouldn't necessarily want me to be a reader, but
right,
uh, at the same time, we all have our unique talents that we can use, and to put those to good use. And when you look inside my project, one of the things that people do notice is that I do have a wide representation of those with disabilities.
really, like of the
I
of the Lego people in there.
Yeah,
Oh no way.
I've got I've got a couple service dogs in there. I've got a couple power chairs in there. I've got a couple wheelchairs. I think one of the wheelchairs has a child on it
No way.
to to represent kids that have visible disabilities. It gets people to think.
Yeah,
It gets people to say if we say that we all are welcome in our churches,
right,
we need to make sure that our spirit is welcoming to everyone that comes through, no matter what they face.
yeah,
You don't know when someone comes into church, you don't know what they're struggling with.
right,
You don't know that person may be having a severe anxiety attack that day.
yeah,
And the only place that they can come to find peace
right,
is at mass.
yeah,
And I say this from personal experience.
yeah,
I have a moderate anxiety challenges with that, and there are times where I'm going to mass when my brain does not want to behave itself.
yeah,
I still push through,
yeah,
and I enjoy it. I love being inside the church, and not just at my home parish, but with all the parishes that I get to visit with my work.
yeah. Well, and you
In
and you
talking,
say you say too though that you push through, which
I
is
push through.
which is important because I think amongst the disabled community sometimes is that people call it the bigotry of low expectations, right? When they're
Yeah.
talking about like the black community or the Hispanic community or whatever it might be. And oh well, you can't, do things because you haven't had the same opportunities or whatever. And I think though that the while that is true in some situations, like I definitely think that the problem of evil is the fact that people do actually become victims. Like just to be clear, from a philosophical perspective, the question of the problem of evil is not why is there evil in the world, generally speaking. The real question is why is it that people actually become victims of groups or systems or just like what appears to be the luck of the genetic draw. But at the same time, the inspiration that somebody like yourself has is that it doesn't keep you down and you don't
No.
have a victim complex, and you do actually see it as, from what I gather during these conversations, that your disability in some way is redemptive because it's through that disability that people say, well, surely this man actually is a child of God. Like, because otherwise he wouldn't be doing these things. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I believe so. And there are times when I struggle with my own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I do have balance issues, which can impact me at times. I've got problems with visual snow, tinnitus, but I don't ask God why.
Mm.
I don't make that my focus. I don't ask God, why was I born like this? Why do I have these challenges? My question is more of what can I do to minimize their impact so I can get things done?
Mm.
That's when I come through with, like, when I'm building the project and my anxiety is high, things aren't going according to plan. Within my own life, on a day where my walking is not that grand, what can I do to function? How do I navigate around this?
Yeah.
How can I minimize these impacts so I can at least do the will of the Father? Difficult as that can be sometimes. St. Paul was known for having a thorn in his side.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those disabilities feel like that to me. But grace of God, I still function, and I'm kind of amazed sometimes by what I'm doing. Uh, I remember one time I was doing a display somewhere, and for a moment I lost myself into what I was doing, and I was looking at the church I had built, admiring the Lego creation, and then realizing, wait a minute, John, you're the one that actually built this. And it's like to be able to do something like this is an amazing talent, an amazing gift,
Yeah.
and it also shows that we can do anything that our hearts desire as long as we put it before the Lord.
Yeah. That is so
I
great.
mean,
And it reminds me of this. I have this mug right here with St. Therese of Lisieux on it that my wife made. And it says on the back here, for those who can't see, but it says right there, I'm going to read this quote. In fact, I picked this mug because I thought this is relevant to what we're going to talk about. She said, "You know well enough that our Lord does not look so much at the greatness of our actions, nor even at their difficulty, but at the love with which we do them." So I brought that
yeah,
down here because I was like, John's going to say something. It's going to be like, that's the moment to drop the quote. And I'm going to drop
yeah,
that quote.
and that's actually very true.
Yeah.
That is very true. For me, it's not about what I'm building; it's so long as I'm doing it in service to Christ,
Right. Yep. And
and
I
that's
mean,
what
what were you going to say?
no, that's what it boils down to with me. That's why I keep pushing through, and it's kind of important for the church to know that people with disabilities do have a place at the table,
Yeah.
and that we can definitely do more. And attitude plays a role in that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's it's something that I've always tried to do with my work. That's why I include so many people with physical disabilities. There are probably people inside the project that have an invisible disability that no one even knows,
Oh, yeah.
or they're struggling with something that we may never know.
Yep.
There may be someone inside the church that is fighting with cancer.
Yep.
They may
Yep.
have severe depression. They may have PTSD.
Yeah.
There may be a half a dozen other different things going on that we will never know.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's why I try and include that inside my work to be reflection. And also, too, I mean, even I'm sitting inside there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you do have your own like little minifig too. I
Oh, and
forgot.
I pulled a fast one this year though.
Oh really? What'd you do?
You've seen the pictures of the organ that I have inside there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, in that front row of of the balcony, the person that is sitting in the organ and the figures that are behind him, including the gentleman that's sitting there, those are actually based on real people.
Oh no way. You got to send me
They're
those. You got to send me those pictures
I,
so I can include them in
I
this
will
segment.
I will send you them. They are actually based off of the Christ the Good Shepherd choir that we have.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, and uh, finding the one with finding the beard piece that I used for the one figure. The gentleman sitting at the organ
Yeah.
actually has a beard almost like that.
Wow. That
And
is so awesome.
I showed it to
Yeah. What did he say?
him. He was kind of like surprised. He's also my primary ride to mass these days. So
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad he made it into the church then. You know, that I would have felt like
I
he
have
would have
done
given the
that.
short end of the stick.
I've done that before. I do that. That's one of the more interesting quirks. I did want to jump to one
Yeah.
thing though that because you were talking about your child bringing up something
Yeah.
during prayer. When I'm doing the displays, I tend to get a lot of questions asked. And at this last display that I did, this girl who was probably about the same age, uh, around 10 years old, in front of everyone, asked me this question about, do I get frustrated when I'm building the project?
Mm,
And that was one of the ones I get getting asked a lot of questions. Sometimes you get a question that really kind of speaks to your heart.
yeah.
And the short answer of it was yes. As I was telling everyone around, and even the adults that were there were kind of taken aback and
Yeah.
surprised by the question. And so, and it's the short answer is yes. I do get frustrated when I'm building the project, but once again, I was able to tie it into the lesson of prayer because when I'm working on this, you're bound to run into problems. Either something's not lining up right, you got to make a design compromise. That's where you're spending your time in prayer.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to bring up on that. You know, we've had a lot of challenges with trying to get this podcast going off the ground. And like, I swear I've almost shut this thing down like at least 5 times. Like, my wife has probably heard me say, I'm giving up. I'm shutting it down. I'm never going to do it again. And, this past week, we finally said, all right, we're just going to do 100 episodes and see what God does with it. Instead of like, you know, trying to have everything super flashy and super ready to go and all this kind of stuff, we're just going to record every day for 100 days, no matter what. And we're going to see what God does with it. You know, whether I'm like super prepared or whether I'm like, you know, all over the map, you know, we're just going to start putting content out there and see if God blesses it. And I think that what you're talking about gets to that. We both have commented about how we now feel like we are actually growing in what we're doing. Like, my wife makes these mugs, you know, as kind of like a little side gig because she's a stay-at-home mom. And Saints and Thinkers, by the way, saintsandthinkers.com. You can go there. You can check out all the stuff. And, you know, trying to do things that aren't just like, you know, clock in at, you know, 8 o'clock, leave at 5, you know, go eat, go to sleep, go back, repeat, you know, and trying to actually identify those gifts and abilities that we can use for the kingdom of God. And, but you do have frustrations. You really, especially if you're trying to do something with your wife, you know, let's just say
Oh,
you learn some things about each other that no amount of marital counseling will ever be able to draw out. It's like, man, you know, it's funny because she's not here to defend herself, so I'll be like, yeah, you don't need to watch this episode, um,
Ah,
but no, it's true though. We both have commented about the fact that something happened, right? And I do think that this is the power of the sacraments and the power of prayer specifically, because as a Protestant, that really was lacking in my life. Like I would write in journals and stuff, but like I mean, just felt like I was rambling or whatever. And now, like one of the most radical things that's changed in my life since becoming Catholic is my prayer life, and specifically the Rosary. And I thought when I first heard about the Rosary, it was going to totally just be a drag.
mhm.
And I would encourage every person, Catholic or Protestant, to get into a habit of praying the Rosary. I mean that is it is life changing. There is no doubt about it. And there's all these books on how, like, prayer books. Pray like this guy, pray like that guy, pray like you know. But the Rosary, I think, really does make you pray like the prayer warriors of the church. Like I really think it does. And not only that, though, it just changes your whole outlook and gives you this lens of, it gives you the lens of the gospel for your life, because you're always thinking about it. Even if your mind's wandering while you're praying the rosary or whatever, you walk away like an hour later and, you're still like, it just comes back into your mind, like this gospel thing or that gospel thing, especially with scripture. But what I was going to say is that I got a little bit off track there. But with the regards to like pushing through, I don't know that we would be able to continue doing what we're doing or have the outlook we have if it wasn't for the Eucharist and what that represents and how that's Christ uniting with us and helping us take up our cross and all of these beautiful images that come in reality through the actual sacraments. Like it's not just conceptual. It's like I was telling one of my friends, that in the book of Isaiah, the angel brings a coal and touches his lips. Or in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel eats the word of God, like the scroll. He actually eats the scroll. And then Christ comes along and says, or like the manna from heaven. Like how many times have people read, I wish I could have the manna of heaven and just know what it was kind of take. Like, what did it take like? Does it taste like the bakery over here? Like, up the road? I mean, like, I feel like they're Jewish. They probably got a like inside track on how things are supposed to be made from heaven. But no, like at the end of the day, you can actually have that experience by faith in the Mass, and you enter into the Holy of Holies, and you are imitating Isaiah and Ezekiel and all the Christians that have gone before us in uniting themselves to the will of God in the Eucharist. And as a result, you do kind of have this ability to, you start to find yourself in your devotion to the sacraments. And again, I've only been Catholic for a year, so, who knows, maybe like in 5 years, people are going to come back to this channel. I'll be a rabid atheist, who knows. But like at the end of the day, you go and you realize that in the Mass, like especially with the Rosary and all this stuff, that these sacraments do actually all work together and bring this full picture. Like I always think about the fact that now that I pray the Rosary, the fact that Christ had somebody help him carry the cross is so profound to me. That even the Son of God condescended to such a degree that in some weird divine mystery, he is both submitting to humanity and permitting somebody to help him.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
it's I may not have disabilities or any of that kind of stuff, but I have my own demons that I have to fight. And this podcast has just been one of those things. And so your work, John, is inspiring me. I hope that you keep doing it, and we can keep talking. But I just really appreciate you continuing to do it and getting after it and being an inspiration to people. I'll let you have the final word if you want to tell people where to go.
well, what I need right now is prayers for season 26.
All right.
Season 25, I ran into some challenges in finding parishes that would be willing to host me. If anyone's got questions about where I'm willing to go, they can just ask me. I can give them the details. So I'm starting to plan ahead.
Okay.
The time for prayer for season 26 is now, as I'm heading into the end of season 25. And I'm really kind of hoping for a positive season. Like you said, I keep getting asked about Father Joe.
Yeah.
Have I been to his parish yet? Have I been on a show yet? I would love to. If you would love to have me on, I'd be more than happy. We could do a display in
Yeah.
Grand Blanc, and I could get into town and we could do a broadcast with the project in the background. I think that'd be kind of neat.
Yeah. That'd be awesome.
So it's like I've got people from all over asking about it, and my general uh, advice to people that would like to have me out at a specific parish: talk to your leadership,
Yeah.
talk to whoever's in charge, let them know what I'm doing, let them know the mission behind why I'm doing it. It is not just the project. The builds are impressive, but it's also the mission behind it, the message that I carry, my love of the faith shining through.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thanks to everyone that supports me. Thanks for all the shows that I get to go on, the articles written. I'm deeply humbled and grateful for it. It allows me to share the mission, to keep pushing through even when days are not going according to plan.
Would you, so real quick, would you go to Protestant churches if they let you come? Would you do that?
If I was doing an independent event and not necessarily connected to a worship service,
Yeah. Yep.
I've done like a holiday bazaar
Yeah.
at a non-Catholic church, or even like another like a special event,
Yeah.
like a conference or something like that. I'd be more than happy to do that. I am a little bit. I will do when I'm at a parish for a display. When I'm doing an actual parish display, I will actually do a talk sometimes
Yep.
if they allow me, like a short, like 5 minute thing. I
Yeah.
don't I don't have a lot of standing time,
Yep.
so I keep things short and to the point.
Yeah.
Uh, then I can sit down when I'm at the project when I'm doing the display and go into longer winded rants. But yeah. If I'm standing at a podium at a church, it's going to be as quick as I can, because number one, people are going to be they're looking to have the mass ended. They're
Yeah.
looking to move on with their daily life, and I understand that.
Yep.
Uh, the last thing you want is someone to talk for 20 minutes.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I know. And
but
we've
but
been,
it's just,
what were you gonna say?
and I get that. I understand that. So I try and be respectful when I'm there
Yeah.
at a parish. But yeah, if a Protestant church is interested in having me, I'm willing to do like an independent event
Yeah. Yeah. Not
for
not
that.
necessarily attached to like a Sunday service because obviously you don't want to be
Exactly.
at mass,
Eh,
but if
Yeah,
it was like a Saturday event or something like that.
yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And keep in mind, I don't drive,
Right.
so any location would have to provide the transportation for the project and
Yep.
myself. But I also do not charge for this. This is not about money.
Right.
I do accept donations, obviously, to help
Right.
support the cost of the parts, but that is not my primary focus.
Right.
I'm feeling that because the location is going to have to provide the transportation and maybe a meal
Right.
here or there,
Yeah.
because I'm also diabetic, so I have to make sure I have my meal times or other accommodations. I don't feel the need to charge.
Yeah. No, that makes
I,
sense.
I, I'd rather have the commitment of the parishes, and there are parishes that are willing to help,
Okay.
uh, such as Resurrection in Standish with Father Ron. I had a beautiful weekend display with them. I also did a bazaar in Saginaw recently, and then I also did Assumption Parish in Midland, Michigan. Beautiful time. I love being able to come out and talk to everyone, to show this work in person. Pictures I post do not do this justice.
Yeah. Well, and I hope that you get a lot more opportunities. And again, the best place to find you is at your is it praying at the bricks on the Substack? Is that the
Bring it.
best place for them to go? Because
Yeah, I usually
I'm
try
gonna
and
put a
put.
Chiron on this thing, so I want to make sure I've got the best link to send people to.
Yeah, because there's also links to everything else that I'm doing
Yep. All
in
right.
each
Cool.
in each issue of the newsletter. And issue 46 will be coming out pretty soon. I try and do one issue a month.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you again for coming on. We are at about an hour and 15 minutes. So I really appreciate you coming on, and
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
I appreciate your witness to the faith because, again, when I started this podcast, formerly known as Solomon's Corner, um, I I did not expect to become a Catholic. Like, that was not on the radar at all. Um, and so, yeah. So if it wasn't for starting the podcast, I wouldn't have met you, and I wouldn't have even started investigating the faith. And so, again, thanks a bunch, John. God bless. Go check him out at Praying at the Bricks. I'm your host,
Thank
Daniel Roberts, and that was like one of the most awkward outros. I was like, oh, I forgot. I gotta exit. All right, thanks everybody. You have a good day.